Hey, good morning. It's another one of our first fives. One of the things I love about Jesus is he tries to teach in such a way that you find yourself going, I don't know if I ever thought about it that way. But in light of his words, in light of who he is, maybe I'll rethink how I understand the world. Maybe I'll even rethink how I think. And so that's why I love this series of words from Matthew chapter 5 to Matthew chapter 7, which is known as the Sermon on the Mount. Whether it was preached in one location over one time, or whether it's the continual teaching of Jesus, doesn't really matter. Because what all scholars will agree on, it really is central to the teaching of Jesus. It's central to the heart of God. And so I love how he begins this in Matthew chapter 5. He has these Beatitudes. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." I'll just stop right there for a second, because most of us hear those words and we think, blessed are the poor, those who mourn, the meek, hunger and thirst for righteousness, the merciful, the pure in heart, peacemakers, persecuted because of righteousness. We're like, man, that sounds like kind of people we don't want to be. And yet, in God's kingdom, which really is the upside down world in which we live, it's the opposite of the way most of us are taught. This is the invitation to know God in this way, to live into his kingdom in such a unique way that blessed are these people. And then Jesus does some things here in the back half of this text that I frankly think we need to look at a little bit more. So Matthew chapter 5, beginning with verse 21, he has this series of sayings. He says this, saying over and over and over again. He says, "You've heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not murder. Anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you, anyone who is angry with his brother will be subject to judgment." Wait, did you catch that? It went from the idea of most of us agree, yeah, don't murder. Cool. Yeah, we're pretty much all good with that. And then Jesus says, wait, don't be angry. Oh. All right, well, let's just move on from that one, right? Then he says next, he says, "You've heard that it was said, do not commit adultery." Okay? But seems reasonable. "But I tell you that anyone who looks at a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart." Oh, so, okay. I should probably give a caveat. Noticing a man is attractive or a woman is attractive is not the same thing as sin here. That's not lust. It's the dwelling in our heart that becomes the lust. It's the longing for something beyond the recognition of beauty. It's longing for something beyond that. That becomes what Jesus is talking about here. And then he goes on to say even further, right? It's been said, in other words, you've heard it said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you, I hate when he does that. But I tell you, only for marital unfaithfulness. Now, some of you today might be listening to this, and you might have been divorced. There might be all kinds of things behind that. I also want you to know that I believe in a God of graciousness. And Jesus models again and again graciousness. But what he's saying to us here is we live in a culture and a time when marriage really isn't all that highly valued. We can come into it easily and we can leave easily. It's why we're seeing a new generation choosing not to get married because they watch their parents and their grandparents get divorced. And they're just saying, I'm not going to do it. And so this is the challenge for us to value marriage in this way, recognizing it's never one person's fault and it's never one person can fight for it, one person can't. Marriage is always 100-100. It's not 50-50. He keeps on going. He says, again, you've heard that it was said to the people long ago, do not break your oath, but keep the oaths you have made to the Lord. Okay? Like, yeah, if you make an oath to the Lord, keep it. But then he says, but I tell you, don't swear at all, either by heaven or by the earth, or by anything else. In other words, just make sure if I say something is true, that is true. He goes on, you're thinking, okay, well, so far I can live with this. You heard that it was said, eye for an eye and tooth for tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Well, you're saying don't hit back. Are you sure about that? I'm not so sure about it, but that's what Jesus says. And he even takes it a step further. He says next, you've heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be sons of your Father in heaven. Wait, so how do I become a child of God? You love your neighbor and hate your enemy? Nope. He says, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. So I can't hate my enemies. I can't keep my enemies. No, he says to love them. Right? I got to be honest with you, this whole chapter, if you were to spend more time with this chapter every single day, this week or weeks to come, what you'll find again and again is most of what we are taught just in everyday life, Jesus takes it and he flips it on its head. It's why he says again and again, you have heard it said. And then he quotes a passage that they would know either from the Old Testament or just from everyday life. And mostly we find these in the Old Testament. But what Jesus says is, you've heard it said, but that's not really the heart or character of God. Here's the heart and character of God. Live into this. And so here's my challenge for you this day. What might it look like if we embrace the words of Jesus in our everyday life, in the words we use in social media, in the way we respond to people who are mean to us or persecute us or just don't like us? What might happen if we loved our enemies? We pray for those who persecute us. What might happen if we turn the other cheek? What might happen if our word was always true? What might happen if we looked at men and women as if they are people and not objects of sexual gratification? What might happen if we didn't get angry, especially over dumb stuff? What might that look like if we begin to live into that? That's the challenge of this chapter. That's God's invitation for you and I. May you find his grace and his peace and his love is near to you today.